Hey everyone, welcome back to DemDMs. My name is Fox Ghost,
I'm Panda Ghost.
And I'm Matt.
and today we are going over our top 3 favorite classes in D&D 5e. So if everyone's ready, let's slide on in.
Before we slide on in, be sure to smite that like button, subscribe, and sneak attack that notification bell. Alright, so let's get into the ranking. Starting at the bottom, my third favorite class is Warlock. I really enjoy the Warlock class. It is very dependent on the campaign you're running or playing in, and how generous your DM is with short rests. That's one thing I like about 5th edition is the short rests and how you get things back on them. And that's the Warlock, right? It's the short, like
Short rest
Every
class,
rest
yeah.
monkey.
yeah. But also like it has some great utility because it's a spellcaster. But then it also has Eldritch Blast, which if you ask me is like the best cantrip in the game, damaging cantrip in the game. And then of course all the customizability. That's what I like most about D&D is like when as a player, making new and interesting characters, right? And this is one more way to make an interesting character. And also, you can a lot of that customization comes with built-in character background stuff, especially with the Warlock, right?
Sure. Yep.
I think that about covers it for my number 3.
Moving on to Foxy.
Yep.
So my number 3 is the Wizard, mainly because of its utility. You get a wide array of different spells that can come in quite handy, as we've seen in countless of our campaigns.
Sure.
I'm in Magic the Gathering, I'm a blue-red player, so I like counter spells and big fireballs.
Yes, you
which
do.
are like 2 of my favorite spells.
doesn't?
But that's actually not the main reason why I like the Wizard. And I'm sad I haven't had a chance to play this yet, but I really like Gish characters as well, and they do have the Blade Singer, which I haven't had a chance to try yet. And I really kind of into see how that works. There's a few busted builds out there for Blade Singer. I don't want to say busted, but very strong builds with Blade Singer, and I forget the Artificer subclass, but it's just something I've looked into. I do like the Sword and Spell, the Duskblade.
The Gandalf. Yeah.
Well, the Duskblade back in 3.5 was like
Sure.
really cool because you had the spells and the swords. And Blade Singer feels kind of like that. I guess you could do Hexblade Warlock, but I prefer having a bigger variety of spells, so that's why I went with the Wizard.
All right. I think it's me next, right?
Yep.
All
What's
right.
your number 3? Number 3.
Number 3 is actually the same as Panda's, the Warlock. For a lot of the same reasons. I really like. I feel like that's really the class that has the most customization, especially at low levels with your invocations. Like any Warlock can be completely different, even if they have the same subclass, even if they have the same, basic build. It's just the invocations can give you so much utility outside of combat as well, and like you said, bump up the ever great Eldritch Blast cantrip, and heighten that to do different things depending on what you want to do. I also similarly, like you said, Panda, like the fact that it kind of bakes in that backstory for your character,
Yep.
just based off of the class, and it allows you to kind of generate either like I feel like a lot of times Warlocks tend to be a little bit more hostile with their pact keepers, or at least they end up that way. And I feel like it's an interesting concept to try and toe that line, right? Especially, if you get into the later levels where things get a little bit more complex generally. But yeah, I really like it. I think it has one of my favorite subclasses, the Hexblade, in it. So obviously that's a big draw for me. But yeah, really into it.
Yeah, we all seem to like our spell swords.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately doesn't transition into my number 2 really well, but my number 2 is the Ranger. As we've alluded to in the previous videos, my current character is a Ranger. And I really have this love-hate relationship with the Ranger.
As you should.
So, as everyone I think agrees at this point, the mechanics for the Rangers suck.
Sure.
Especially compared to like the 3-5 Ranger. I know, beating a dead horse here, we talk about 3-5 a lot, but
yeah,
a lot of things that the Rangers got in 3-5 are similar to the things that they get in 5th edition, like
favorite
enemy. But in 3.5, you got bonuses to damage them. I don't understand why it can't be like your proficiency modifier to the damage, or it scales with the proficiency. Like if it's at the start it's a D4, and then when you go up in proficiency it's the D6, and so
And we all know about the optional rules from Tasha's. We're not, saying that hasn't been an attempt to make it better, but
I don't think it does enough.
Yeah.
Even still.
As well as it's like some of the subclasses, like, I just feel like there's like one or two good ones and the rest are just trash, it seems.
Well, like with Hunter feels like it should be the base of Ranger, right?
Mm-hmm. Like the base abilities outside
the base abilities, and everything else is subclass on top of that, right? Like it just feels, and I think that also leads to like this identity crisis of the Ranger. Like in previous editions it was more like this survivalist kind of character, where now it's like druid light.
I mean, and I kind of miss the whole ability, the beast companion, right? Because it is totally trashed in 5th edition.
Yeah, it's non-existent basically.
Yeah.
But like imagine if you had beast companion with the hunter sub, like at the same time, it would be so much better, right?
Yeah. But it's your number 2 for a reason.
Yes.
So is it purely nostalgia, or is it, actually like 5th edition and like has it close but it's not quite there?
The reason why it barely ekes out Warlock for me, just because it's easier to fit into any campaign setting, right? It's more, flexible in that regard. And also, like, part of the fact that I like about the Warlock is the short rests, but that's also, like, its biggest downfall. If you're in a campaign where you can't short rest, or your DM doesn't, like, if your DM is running a campaign where, like, you're adventuring through the day, you fight one thing, you go to sleep, then you're not getting the full extent out of your Warlock abilities, right?
Sure.
Where, like, the Ranger in every other class, right, it doesn't matter as much. Except for maybe the Fighter. The Fighter gets a good number of things on short rest as well.
And Monk with their key.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that about covers it for my number 2. What about you, Fox Ghost?
So my number 2 is the Cleric. I've played 2 Clerics so far, 1 Grave, 1 Death, and a half Cleric, well, 3/4 Cleric, with Order Domain Cleric. So I've played quite a bit of Clerics at this point. It's funny because when I played my Grave Domain Cleric, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll be the Cleric, we don't have a healer. But after playing him, like, oh man, this is good. I really like this.
They're really powerful.
Yeah, they're really powerful.
And in the next campaign, in Panda's campaign, I'm just doing a single level dip into the Twilight Domain Cleric, just to get that
edge.
Well, no, it's for 2 reasons. 1, advantage on initiative, I believe, and the 300 foot or whatever dark vision.
Yeah, I don't know
he-
why I let you do that.
yeah, I don't know. We could talk about that.
Yeah, but I think it feels like that class in particular is one that can really change an encounter like on its head, with the healing and all that stuff, as well as just like the status effects and the things that it can do.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it
I mean-
really is a good class.
I mean,
Yeah.
clerics and wizards just throw encounter balance out the window.
Yep.
Sure.
And I didn't mean to pick those two for those reasons. I just like them I just like them thematically. Yeah. Just the like a cleric doesn't have to be a heal bot.
Yeah.
I know that's how a lot of people play cleric, but I don't know. My Grave Domain cleric, he put out the hurt quite a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me. I really would like to play in some campaign down the line a light domain cleric and just be pretty much a wizard that just casts fireball.
Yeah.
But you're
you get that as
Yep.
a light domain cleric, and it's just like, why does a cleric have fireball? I don't know, but it does.
Why not?
Because why not? Screw the rules. Anyway,
Yep.
Matt, what is... Fox, you done with your number 2?
Yeah, that about wraps up everything for my number 2.
All right. So for me, my number 2 slot here is going to go to the monk.
Ooh.
To probably no surprise to you guys.
Yes.
But I really like monk. I think the amount of things that you are able to do in combat outside of like just hitting somebody is just so interesting. It kind of reminds me of what really draws a lot of people to the Battlemaster Fighter. In idea of like giving status effects or doing additional things to somebody because of your key points. And similarly to the Warlock, your main ability, which is based off of your key points generally, is going to recharge on a short rest to its full, right? Like it's, at higher levels, it can be like 20 key points. You go to sleep for an hour and you get them all back. It's great. The last monk that I played was actually a Way of the Four Elements monk that I kind of just went straight air and took a bunch of things, and I took Fist of Unbroken Wind. And when you realize that that is not constrained to the spell limits that you normally get for that subclass, it puts out a lot of damage real quick. And you start punching holes in things. So that's really fun, as well as it's always just nice as a player to be like, yeah, no, that I don't need, that doesn't bother me at all. And it's kind of one of those classes that I don't think there's really any other class that you can get proficiency in every single save at all. You know what I mean? Like it's just everything, and you get, immunity to poison and all kinds of other things, and like advantage to certain checks and things. It's a really, to be honest with you, it's kind of one of the classes that a lot of people think is broken just because of that, ability. But yeah, I really like it. And I really like, kung fu movies and things like that in large. So it kind of just really all fits together in that nice little package.
Yeah, it's definitely a good class. Definitely maybe with the all the immunities and proficiencies it gets to saves. It's definitely and also the fact that it can get kind of tanky. It's definitely
I mean, it also gets the the evasion ability that
Yep.
rogues get, so it's already taken like no damage on a lot of things. It's insane.
Well then,
R.I.P. Tordic.
R.I.P.
Yes.
Tordic.
Yes, unfortunately, he wasn't immune to enough things. Died anyway. Typical.
All right. I guess we can slide into our number one picks.
One.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for
The
me,
gold medalists.
yes, for me, as maybe no surprise to you guys, maybe no surprise to our fans if they've been watching us for long enough. My number one is the Paladin.
Alley boy.
Especially in 5th edition. Paladin sucked in 3.5. I'm very glad that it got
It did.
a boost in 5th edition, to say the least. But because it's a martial class. I like martial classes. And D&D, swords and stuff, right? And it's a very heroic class. 5th edition, more so than any other edition, is very much a hero. You're meant to be heroic. It's already hard enough to die in 5th edition, right, compared to other older editions. And it's just like that quintessential hero, knight in shining armor, fantasy character, right?
And they kind of did a good thing, I think, in kind of splitting it away from the typical lawful good trope, but also the need to have some tie to religion inherently in the class. Which I think opens it up a little bit.
I like that a lot. That you can be like my favorite paladins that I haven't played with you guys, but I played in another campaign. Was a chaotic good paladin.
I've heard
an urchin. That
Oh yes, I think you told me about this one. Yeah.
He was just a fun character. And because I wasn't constrained to those restrictions on religion and stuff, he was lawful stupid. He was since he was Oath of Devotion, and he was devoted to his orphanage, right? So, like, he doesn't care about laws, right? He cares about doing whatever he needs to do to keep that orphanage alive. Even if it entails backstabbing another player because the other player is being a douche, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the class features and, like, system in general is kind of moving away from the kind of box that alignment put you in.
Yeah.
Allowing you to really kind of stretch your legs outside of those typical tropes of the class, which is fun.
Yeah. And just to go over, of course, the mechanics are great too, right? Like, smites are always nice, right? The survivability it gets from healing hands or lay on hands and their own healing spells and stuff like that's great too. But also, like, it's a good team player class, right? Like, it's a good support that can also deal damage, right?
It's got that nice, like, little bit of healing that can really turn the tide of someone's going down in a battle or something. And I really like it's one of the classes that has, I think, obviously the most bonus action spells. And that's really nice, especially with more of like a martial class like this.
Yeah. And my last, actually, this is probably the biggest reason why I like the Paladin so much, in terms of, of all classes, not just because I like playing Paladin, but it is a really good choice for people that can't get a large group together. So, like, if you're playing, 2 players or 3 players, right? If you play a Paladin, now you're covering the bases of a Cleric and a Fighter, right? You're the tank and the healer now, right? And also the damage dealer if, you can feel whatever role is missing, right? So, like, if you have a rogue and a cleric, then you're the tank, right? If you have a wizard and a cleric, then you can be the the damage, the big damage dealer, right? It fills the niche that is missing from your group, especially in small groups, and that's why I like it so much. It makes D&D more accessible for smaller groups.
Yeah, and if you go Oath of the Ancients, you can sub in for the Druid.
Right. But I think that about covers it for my number 1 pick.
All right. Foxy.
I mean,
Yeah.
do I have to say it? I mean, it's so obvious, but it's the rogue.
Sneaky,
I mean,
What a surprise!
oh, I mean, so I don't. I've always liked the sneaky characters. I've always liked the cheeky devils. You know, like the Han Solos and the Indiana Jones. I guess, yeah. Harrison Ford, I see.
Yeah, it's just Harrison Ford. That's all it is.
But I can't think of the guy's name, but I guess the guy from The Mummy as well. The main character
Brendan
from The Mummy.
Fraser.
Yeah. Who doesn't
Back then,
love
not now.
Yeah,
he's,
but
he's a little chunky now.
but who doesn't love a lovable scoundrel, you know?
Sure.
And I've always just liked sneaky stuff. I don't know why.
Yeah.
In RPGs, I always play or like video game RPGs, that is. I always play the sneaky boy, hashtag stealth archer in Skyrim.
Yeah.
It's just fun to like come up behind someone and just one shot kill them, man. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. But rogues also get cool other things like infiltration, lock picking, all that good stuff. Their subclasses, you know, swashbuckler basically turns you into a fighter.
Yep.
Yeah,
Arcane Trickster gives you some magic.
I think for me though, the problem with the rogue for me is like sometimes it feels like you got sneak attack and then that's kind of the rest of it's all just kind of making sure you can still get that sneak attack. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like hiding
that is
better
true.
or something like that. It feels like I maybe want one or two more things that I can do as the rogue, and I think that's why some people get drawn to like the Arcane Trickster because they have that utility with the spells and things like with illusions and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly, and that's why I'm in this next campaign. I'm going to be an Arcane Trickster, because it's like, oh, I just sneak attack, I just sneak attack, I just sneak attack. It's like I'm a one-trick pony. That shouldn't really be. Like, I have all these skills, but I use none of them. I just sneak attack, you know.
Yeah.
It does get, that part of it does get a little boring. But rogues can also be the face of the party as well. You know, rogues can do a bunch of things, but they are a lot of times limited to just sneak attack. I like sneak attack, so I don't care.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's about it. I just like being the sneaky boy.
Yep.
All right, Matt. Wrap us up.
Right. Rounding us out here. Again, much like everyone else, it's no surprise for everybody. The Bard is my number one gold medalist up there. I don't know what it is. I feel like the Bard is like my favorite class to play because I can be as flamboyant as I want and I'm just playing the character, right? It's definitely not Matt just being a weirdo, right?
Sure, keep telling yourself that, bud.
But I really like it. I think it's one of the few classes that it is a support class, I feel like, to its core, but I honestly think that it's more interesting and more fun than the wizard. All right, and by that I mean I feel like it gets a lot of the same. I mean it's a full caster, right? So it gets a lot of the same spell capability as the wizard. It has a little bit slimmer of a list to choose from. But if you go College of Lore, you can kind of explore other spell lists and things like that. You know, you can get higher level spells earlier and stuff like that. It's a really interesting class because it has that, but it also has the flavor of you're backing everybody up, you're supporting everybody, and that's just kind of the person I like to play in the group, is kind of like, you know, pushing somebody else into the limelight and saying, here, go do that, you know, go have fun, you know. And I think what's cool about it, similar to the Warlock, is a lot of its features are based off of role play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a really, I would be concerned if someone was not comfortable with roleplay and tried to be a bard. I feel like it's one of those classes that it's definitely leaning more in the roleplay spectrum. And so I think it's just inherently like needed to have some of that interest from you. And I don't know. It's a real fun class. I always liked the, similarly to the rogue, I think it has kind of that scoundrel, shady kind of guy kind of appeal to it.
I mean, think of Miguel and Tulio from El
yeah,
Dorado.
exactly.
Which I find it funny because we did exactly that in Panda's campaign.
Yeah, in his last campaign. Yeah, I was a bard, you were a rogue, and we were teaming up as like a con artist group. It was great.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. But I also, I really think that the subclasses, it's not so much, I mean, it's giving you other abilities, obviously, but it's kind of flavoring what your inspiration is, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I really like there's I think it's like a College of like Whispers or something bard. That's really just like kind of the political activist kind of, instigator kind of person that just goes through the crowd and is like, I hear that guy really hates his kids. You know what I mean? Or something like, just saying like really dirty things. And also just the idea that like you have cantrips and spells that literally the idea of the spell is you are insulting somebody to death. That is awesome. I love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just a fun class to play. I think if anybody was like, hey, this is just a, for fun game, we're kind of taking it easy in this one, or, we're going to go a little bit more role play heavy, I think I would always go bard. It just feels the best class for me.
Yeah. So. For me, I do like the bard. Unfortunately, I do lack some of the
charisma.
Yeah. The real life charisma.
Yeah.
To play a bard. That's why I feel like if I were to play a bard, I would love to play a bard that's like the dad of the group, and instead of like vicious mockery, like being insults, it's just dad jokes.
Oh
yeah.
No!
Yeah, just the groan.
I want this now. By the way, this has to happen.
Yeah. But the what's interesting is there's ones that like do tarot cards and stuff like that, like tarot card readings and things. Those are really neat, like seance, almost spirit, bards or whatever. I feel like it's really cool, like what you could get into. And I feel like what's really cool about it, like I said, is that, if you are someone that's a little bit more introverted and not really comfortable being that kind of off the walls goofy, it kind of gives you that excuse. Like, hey, I'm just playing the character. I can be as crazy as I want. And no one's going to know that I'm just feeling a little awkward about it. It's a good, I don't know. It's a fun one for me to play. But, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. Like always.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, just let us know down in the comments, like, what you thought of our top 3. Let us know your top 3. We'd be interested to, see what everybody's opinions are. And yeah, I don't know. What else you got, guys?
Yeah, just be sure to smite that like button, subscribe, and sneak attack the notification bell. But until then, join us next time when we slide into DemDMs. Bye, guys.
Bye.